I'm 24 now, but this happened when I was 11, and I still think about it whenever I hear a house settle at night. My parents weren't reckless people. They didn't leave me home alone often, especially not after dark. But this was one of those situations where everything lined up just wrong. My mom worked late at the hospital, my dad was out of town for work, and my older sister had a school event that ran late. The plan was simple. My neighbor, Mrs. Collins, would come sit with me until my sister got home around 9:30 p.m. Except she never showed up. I remember sitting on the living room carpet with my homework spread out in front of me, glancing at the clock over and over. 7:45, 8:10, 8:30. I tried calling her house phone, but it just rang and rang. I wasn't panicking yet. I told myself she was probably just running late. The house felt different when I realized I was alone longer than I was supposed to be. It was a 2-story house with a finished basement, and during the day it felt normal. At night, it felt too big, too hollow. Sounds carried differently. The ticking of the clock in the kitchen suddenly felt loud. The hum of the fridge sounded like breathing if you listened too long. I turned on the TV just to fill the silence. I wasn't really watching it. I kept listening instead. Every noise made me sit up straighter. Around 8:50, I heard a sound that made my stomach drop. It was subtle, soft, like someone shifting their weight. It came from upstairs. I froze. I muted the TV and listened. The sound didn't repeat right away, which almost made it worse. I stood up slowly, heart pounding, and stared at the staircase. The upstairs hallway light was off. It was just darkness beyond the top step. "Hello?" I called out, immediately hating how small my voice sounded. No answer. I told myself it was just the house settling. Old houses make noise, that's what adults always said. I sat back down, unmuted the TV, and tried to focus. That's when I heard footsteps. Not creaks, not random pops. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, crossing the hallway upstairs. I stood up again, this time shaking. I ran to the front door and checked the lock. It was locked. I checked the back door. Locked. The windows were all closed. Nothing looked disturbed. I convinced myself it had to be my sister coming home early. Maybe her ride dropped her off sooner than expected. I walked back toward the stairs, feeling stupid for being scared. "Sarah?" I called out. Still nothing. I didn't go upstairs. Something about the silence felt wrong, too intentional. I backed away and went into the kitchen where the house phone was mounted on the wall. I picked it up and started dialing my mom's number. That's when I heard the upstairs bedroom door open. The sound was unmistakable, a soft click followed by the faint scrape of wood against wood. I dropped the phone. I ran. I didn't even think. I sprinted down the hallway into the small laundry room and locked myself inside. It didn't have a real lock, just one of those flimsy sliding ones, but it was all I had. I turned off the light and crouched behind the washer, hugging my knees to my chest. My heart was beating so hard I was sure whoever was upstairs could hear it. Footsteps moved toward the stairs. Each step down made my chest tighten. The person wasn't rushing. They weren't sneaking either. It sounded like someone who knew they didn't need to hurry. The steps stopped at the bottom. Silence. Then the living room floor creaked. I covered my mouth with my hands to keep myself from making any noise. Tears streamed down my face, but I didn't make a sound. I could hear drawers opening in the kitchen, cabinets, the fridge opening, then closing. I didn't understand why someone would be doing that. Then I heard my name. Not shouted, not whispered, just spoken, calmly, like someone calling you from another room. "Ethan." I felt my entire body go cold. They said it again, closer this time. "Ethan, come here." I didn't move. I couldn't. The laundry room door handle rattled. Whoever it was tried once, then again harder. The cheap lock held, but I could hear them breathing on the other side. I shut my eyes as tight as I could and prayed, something I hadn't done before that night. After a few seconds, the handle stopped moving. Footsteps moved away. I stayed there frozen, not knowing if they were gone or just waiting. I don't know how long passed, maybe minutes, maybe longer, before I heard the front door open and slam shut. I didn't leave the laundry room until my sister came home and found me curled up on the floor, shaking so hard I couldn't speak. The police were called. They searched the house. Nothing was missing, no forced entry, no fingerprints. They told my parents it was probably my imagination, but the next morning, my mom found something sitting on my bed upstairs. My bedroom door was closed when I hid. On my pillow was my favorite action figure, placed neatly in the center. For a long time, the adults insisted there was a logical explanation. They said maybe I'd left the toy there myself and forgotten. Maybe I dreamed hearing my name. Maybe the stress of thinking I was alone triggered some kind of panic episode. Even my sister believed that at first, until she admitted something that made my blood run cold. She said when she came home that night, the front porch light was off. She always left it on when she wasn't home. I slept in my parents' bed for weeks after that. Even when my dad came back from his trip, I refused to be alone in any room of the house. I followed my mom around like a shadow. Eventually, life went back to normal, or as normal as it could be after something like that. Except the house never felt empty again. I started noticing small things that were easy to explain away if you didn't want to think about them too hard. Cabinet doors left slightly open in the morning. The TV volume turned down when I was sure I'd left it louder. My bedroom window unlocked after I remembered locking it. My parents chalked it up to forgetfulness. I wanted to believe them. I tried to convince myself that the fear was making me imagine things. But every night when the house went quiet, I listened. And sometimes I heard breathing. Not loud, not obvious, just enough to make me sit up in bed and stare at the dark doorway. A month passed before anything else happened. It was a Saturday afternoon, broad daylight. My parents were both home, working in the backyard. I was in my room playing video games with headphones on. At some point, I felt that strange sensation you get when someone is watching you. I paused the game and took off my headphones. That's when I heard it. A soft knock. Not at the front door, at my bedroom door. My heart jumped into my throat. "Yeah?" I said, forcing my voice to sound normal. No answer. I stood up slowly and opened the door. The hallway was empty. I felt stupid again, embarrassed even. I closed the door and sat back down. Less than a minute later, the knock came again. 3 slow taps. This time, I yanked the door open. Still nothing. I shouted for my mom, my voice cracking. She came upstairs, annoyed, asking what was wrong. I told her someone was knocking on my door. She checked every room, every closet, even the attic access and the hallway ceiling. Nothing. That night, my dad installed new locks on all the doors and windows. He said it was probably kids messing around or an animal getting onto the porch somehow. He tried to sound calm, but I could tell he was unsettled too. The knocks stopped after that. For a while. Then school started again, and my parents went back to their routines. One evening, my sister had to stay late for rehearsal, and my mom went out to pick up groceries. My dad was still at work. I wasn't technically alone. My mom said she'd only be gone 20 minutes. I sat on the couch, TV on low, eyes glued to the hallway. At first, everything was quiet. Then I heard the sound of the back door opening. Relief washed over me. I stood up, ready to yell to my mom that I was in the living room. But then I remembered something. The back door squeaked when it opened. This time, it didn't. Footsteps moved across the kitchen floor. I stayed frozen on the couch. "Mom?" I called out. No response. The footsteps stopped. Then the hallway light turned on. I watched the glow spill across the carpet, inching closer to where I sat. My chest tightened so hard it hurt. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Someone stepped into the living room. It wasn't my mom. It was a man. He stood just inside the doorway, wearing a dark jacket and a baseball cap pulled low over his face. He didn't rush toward me. He didn't say anything. He just stared. I screamed. The sound ripped out of me, loud and raw. The man flinched, then turned and bolted back down the hallway. I heard the back door slam open, then shut again. My mom pulled into the driveway seconds later. She found me curled up on the floor, sobbing so hard I couldn't speak. This time, she didn't doubt me. She called the police immediately. They came fast, faster than before. They searched the house, the yard, the alley behind our fence. One of the officers found muddy footprints near the back door. Another found the kitchen window unlocked. They asked me to describe the man. I told them about the jacket, the hat, the way he didn't look surprised to see me, like he already knew I'd be there. That's when one of the officers exchanged a look with the other. They told my parents there had been reports of a man breaking into houses in the area, specifically houses where children were known to be alone at certain times. He didn't always steal anything. Sometimes he'd just walk through the house. Sometimes he'd watch. That night, my parents packed bags. We stayed with my aunt for a week. When we came back, the house felt violated, wrong, like it wasn't ours anymore. But the scariest part came months later, after we moved. The new owners called us. They asked if we ever had problems with the crawl space access in the basement. They said they found blankets down there, and food wrappers, and a notebook. Inside the notebook were pages filled with dates and times, and one name written over and over again: mine. I didn't hear about the notebook until years later. At the time, my parents shielded me from most of the details. All I knew was that we moved suddenly, and I was never allowed to go back to that house, not even to pick up things we'd left behind. My dad handled everything. Furniture was sold. Boxes were thrown away instead of unpacked. It was like they wanted to erase that place from existence. For a while, it worked. We moved into a smaller house across town. One story, no basement, no crawl spaces. I slept with my bedroom door locked for years, but slowly the fear dulled. Childhood has a way of burying things so you can survive. I grew up. I forgot what it felt like to be that terrified kid hiding in the laundry room, listening to someone say my name from the dark, until my mom finally told me the rest. It happened when I was home from college one summer. We were sitting at the kitchen table late at night, just talking. Somehow, the conversation drifted to old houses, bad memories, things you don't usually bring up unless it's quiet and late. She got quiet when I mentioned that old neighborhood. Then she asked me something that made my stomach tighten. "Do you remember the police coming the second time?" she asked. I nodded. She sighed and folded her hands together. "They didn't tell you everything," she said. According to my mom, the police took the notebook from the crawlspace and treated it as evidence. They didn't find the man that night, or the next week, or the next month, but the notebook changed how they looked at the case. It wasn't random. The dates went back over a year, long before the night I was left alone by accident, long before Mrs. Collins didn't show up, long before anyone realized something was wrong. The man had been inside the house dozens of times, sometimes when no one was home, sometimes when everyone was. He documented routines. When my dad left for work, when my mom worked late, when my sister had rehearsals, when the house was empty, and when it wasn't. My name appeared more than any other, because I was predictable. I had a bedtime. I had a room at the end of the hall. I watched TV in the same spot. I played in my room with the door closed. He learned the sound of my footsteps. He learned my voice. He learned my name. The police believed he'd been living in the crawl space on and off for months, maybe longer. The blankets suggested he slept there. The food wrappers matched items we had bought, things we thought we'd just eaten and forgotten about. That night in the laundry room, he wasn't trying to steal anything. He was looking for me. When he placed the action figure on my pillow, it wasn't random. It was proof. Proof that he could come and go without being seen. Proof that he could be in my room whenever he wanted. I asked my mom why they never told me. She started crying. She said the police warned them that if I knew how long he'd been watching me, I'd never sleep again. They were probably right. I asked if they ever caught him. She shook her head. A few months after we moved, similar reports popped up in a neighboring town. Same pattern, same behavior. Houses where kids were alone briefly, no forced entry, no major theft. Then the reports stopped. No arrest, no body, no explanation, just gone. I didn't sleep that night after my mom told me. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying memories I hadn't thought about in years. The way the man stood in the living room, not surprised to see me. The calm in his voice when he said my name. The feeling of being watched, even in daylight. That feeling never fully left. Even now, as an adult, I double-check locks. I notice when something feels off in a room. I don't like crawl spaces. I don't like attics. I don't like the idea of empty spaces inside walls, because I know how easily someone can hide. Sometimes I wonder how close it came to being worse. What if my sister had come home later that first night? What if the laundry room door hadn't held? What if I hadn't screamed when I saw him in the living room? I don't like to think about the answers. Every once in a while, I still dream about that house. In the dream, I'm standing in the hallway, staring at my bedroom door. I can hear breathing on the other side, slow, patient. Then I hear my own voice whispering my name from inside the room, and I wake up before the door opens. I don't know where that man is now, but I know one thing for sure. He knew me when I was a child, and for a long time, I wasn't as alone as I thought.